Hey there, everybody. It is Jay Baer, business growth and customer experience researcher, author, and advisor. Delighted to be here. I have been the recipient of quite a bit of advice in my life, and also I have been the propagator of quite a bit of advice in my life. But I think the best advice I've ever received is actually emblazoned on a sign just off camera here. I keep it in my office in my line of sight. My mom gave this to me many, many years ago, right when I started my very first company. And this sign says, "Accept that some days you're the pigeon and some days you are the statue." And I think that is very solid advice because it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what you do. Some days are going to be great and other days are going to be less so. And really, the key to success, in my estimation, is not getting too high and not getting too low. Tomorrow is always another day.
Ooh, so right before you started your first business, what was that? 2 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years
Two
ago?
years ago. No, let's see. I started, it would have been 24 years ago.
Wow, that is outstanding. Well, you got that advice early on. So before that, Jay, have you ever had a corporate job, Jay? Or
I
have you
did. Oh,
always
yeah.
been on your own?
No, I
Yeah?
had a series of corporate jobs from the time I was essentially 22 till I was 30,
Cool, cool. So
including
with that,
including like Fortune 30 companies, and
oh,
I worked for the government for a while as well. So I had the rare opportunity to decide very, very quickly what I did not want to do. And working as an employee for giant companies was one of them, and working for the government was most definitely also one of the things I decided I did not.
that's fantastic. So with that, Jay, well, you're working with the government, boy, they could use your book, The Time to Win, huh?
I was, true story, Phil, I was the spokesperson for the Arizona Department of Juvenile Corrections. So my
Ooh,
job was to give tours of juvenile prison. And that job, it wasn't even as good as I just made it sound in the previous sentence. So I decided pretty quickly. But it is funny, right? So the whole point of the book, The Time to Win, is to build a culture of responsiveness in your organization. And your mileage may vary depending on what government agency it is, but in the Arizona Department of Juvenile Corrections in the mid 90s there was not a culture of responsiveness, quite the opposite.
that's cool. That's cool. Well, I love your new book, Jay. It's
Thanks.
super easy to read, super action packed, lots of stuff there.
It is
But
only this
what?
big. That is why it's so easy to read. This is not a
That's
mock-up. This is the actual book.
yeah. Well, when I got it, I was like, wow, Jay, you're really asking for a lot here. You're looking for like 38 minutes of my time,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
pretty nice. So with that, let's talk about that. So why would you write this book now, Jay?
So here's the thing. My observation coming out of the pandemic, Phil, was that we had all these trends that we were talking about, right? Like great resignation and quiet quitting, and people wanting to work from home because they don't want to spend time commuting. Even Major League Baseball this year, as you know, reduced the average length of games by 26 minutes because now there's a pitch clock. So the games are faster, right? All these trends, turns out, are the same trend, which is that we care about our time and how we spend it more than we used to. And I wanted to make sure that's true. So, like all the books that I've written, I always do very comprehensive, frankly, very expensive research to validate the principle before I take it to the page or on a stage. And it is, in fact, true. 63%, almost 66% actually, of customers say that speed is now as important as price, and that wouldn't have been the case in the past. And so, if you accept the premise, and there's lots of data in the book to back it up, that customers of all kinds care more about speed, responsiveness than they used to, the question really becomes, if your customers care about time more than ever, do you run your business as if that were the case? And in most circumstances, the answer is no. And that's a huge opportunity. The reason the book is called The Time to Win is that this is an opportunity for any business, and I mean any business whatsoever, to use a culture of responsiveness as a distinct competitive advantage. I think you've got 24 to 30 months or so before everything contained in this book you're going to do, because your customers will simply require you to. It will be non-optional. You'll be forced to do so by societal expectations. But if you get started now, you've got a head start and you can outperform your competitors until they figure it out or until they buy the book.
Well, I mean, buying the book though and actually doing the work are two different things. So how do we get
True.
started?
True.
Right? How do we get started on the time to win, Jay?
Yeah.
Because speed is great, and I know about speed, but I want to execute speed. I want
Yeah.
to do speed. So how do I get started?
Yeah, that's it. And it's funny about the book and why it's so small. I mean, I didn't, that wasn't the written initial plan. I've written 6 other business books that are what you'd consider to be sort of full length, right? And I started to write this one, and I'm like, wait a second, I can't ask people to spend 5 or 6 hours reading a business book about speed. I'm like, this is the exact opposite advice, right? So I'm like, okay, let's write a very short book that you can read in 45 minutes, and then maybe people will actually read it instead of just skim it. And they do. People love it, and because it's so small, it's only like $9 on Amazon, so it's a bargain at 3 times the price. The most important thing you can do first. Well, let me back up. The -1 step, the thing you have to do actually first, is to understand that this will actually make you money, right? The data is very clear on this. If you have a culture of responsiveness, not only will you get more customers, but you'll keep more of the customers that you have already earned. And that's because we live in an era where we interpret responsiveness as respect. And so your customers want to feel respected by you. And if you are faster, they feel more respected, therefore they give you more money. So that's the first thing, is to just understand that this isn't just like, hey, this would be a cool idea. This would be fun to do. Like if you do this, it will literally make you money. And your competition probably won't do it because they think they're already fast enough.
Ooh. So they think they're fast enough, and I'm going to be faster than them. Does that mean, though, Jay, that I have to be on 24/7, 365 and responding to text messages and emails and tweets and Facebook posts all the time?
Well, let me say it this way. Maybe. And if doing so literally makes you more money, what's the problem with that? Now, I'm not suggesting that that is a requirement. I'm not suggesting that you've got to be on 24 hours a day, but I am suggesting that if you realize that by being faster than your competition, you're going to get more customers and those customers will stay longer. If that's true, and the data is very clear that it is, what's the downside of being online more often? Like go hire somebody for $14 an hour to staff your social media accounts. And if you're making $28 an hour because you're the fastest in the industry, great, sign me up, right? So you have to
Yeah,
think
that's a
about
slot machine.
yeah, think about it to some degree as an investment, I think is one philosophy. But the most important part of this principle is not necessarily, Phil, to just execute on raw speed. Okay. The trick is to be more responsive than your customers expect you to be. So if you know what they expect and you're just slightly faster than that, you're in great shape, which doesn't mean you have to be always on in 2 seconds. You have to be faster than they expect you to be. The other way you can make that work for you is to do a better job than you probably do today of setting those expectations. And this is an area where a lot of businesses really fall short. They assume, falsely, that their customers have a pretty good feel for how long things take in their business and why. Right? I used to own a big global consulting firm, and it would take us 75 days to create a strategic plan. And I just assumed that everybody would understand that a strategic plan of that magnitude would take 75 days. And I realize now that that was not always the case. Fun fact, if you don't set expectations, your customers will expect everything to happen instantly. Because we have been trained that that is possible, right? I can get something from Amazon tomorrow. I can pick up my phone and press one button and I can get a car, I can get a cheeseburger, I can get insurance, I can get sex, I can get a lot of things instantaneously. So why would it take you 75 days again? So one of the best ways you can run this opportunity is to just be more proactive and informative about how long things take in your business and why. Because if you set the expectation, it then becomes easier to exceed the expectation. But if you give them no expectation, they're going to think it's going to be tomorrow, and you're going to set yourself up to be disappointing them.
Wow. Wow. I need to do a better job of that with my wife, Jay, because
like 100%. No, I'm not. I mean, I know you're.
No.
I know that. I mean, that's literally true. And your kids and every.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So we set a better expectation.
Yep.
We over deliver a little bit. Now, who expects this the most? Is there a generation that we really need to be aware of that's really expecting this?
So a couple things on that. So we did a lot of research on cohorts. Men, this will be such a surprise. Men are slightly less patient than women. Shocking. It's a big finding. It's a big finding. The other thing that blew me away is we asked all the different generational cohorts about patience, sort of about how long they would wait to get an answer back from a company if they had a question, et cetera, et cetera. And it turned out the most patient generation, the generation willing to give businesses a little extra grace in response time, Gen Z.
How is that?
Surprised me too. Because I've got 2 Gen Zs in my own home, and I don't think of them as being particularly patient. And of course, they were raised with phones and all that kind of thing. Huh. I think, and we didn't ask it this way, and I wish we would have now, but I didn't expect the result. I think it's because that generation may not have as many leases on their time yet, probably don't have kids of their own, may not have a super busy job, may not be involved in as many clubs, organizations, and activities, right? So they may not feel the same kind of time pressure that people in our age group feel. And some of that starts to make sense when you look at what is the least patient generation. Baby boomers.
Is that us? Oh, no, boomers!
Baby boomers. And is that because they have less time left? Ooh. I mean, that sounds sort of depressing and maudlin, but the numbers add up, right? I mean, the math checks. Like if you're like, hey, I only got another 10 years, I want my sofa now, right? I mean, I get it.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, when I saw you speak, and you're an awesome speaker, it's always enjoyable to see you on stage, man. You're a master. So Thanks. You talked about your custom piece of furniture.
Yeah.
Can you share that story a little bit? Because that's an interesting lesson, I think, for all of us, and very instructive as we talk about the time to win.
So in the pandemic, I bought a custom sofa, and it was one of the deals where you can like pick out your fabric and your legs and your wood stain, whatever. It's a company called Monarch, and they've got offices in Texas and LA. And they said on the website that it would take 8 weeks. And I'm like, well, that's 2 months, but they got to make a sofa from scratch. Like, I get it. And they got to ship it to me and all that. I'm like, all right, fine. Well, on week 15, I still had no sofa and could not get a hold of anybody. I'd been trying since like week 9, calls, emails, like, nothing. I'm like, am I gonna have to like cancel this credit card charge? Because number one, I've been sitting on a milk crate for 4 months, and number two, where's my money, and etc. So I finally get a hold of them, and this woman Genevieve is like, oh, Mr. Baer, it's been taking at least 16 weeks to make custom sofas. And that was confusing to me because I know the website had said 8. So I asked her, I said, well, Genevieve, how long has that been the case? And I'm thinking, okay, this is a COVID thing. They got a ship off the coast of Long Beach with a bunch of fabric in it or whatever. She says, oh, almost 2 years. So before the pandemic even
So the website's
started,
been lying for 2 years.
Exactly. The website's been lying for 2 years. And so I said, well, Genevieve, if it's taking 16 weeks, why does the website say 8 weeks? I literally asked her that, and she said, we don't want customers to stop placing orders.
So we're going to lie to you, take the order, and then have to refund money.
Yeah, but you can't refund it because it's custom. They won't refund it unless you go to your credit card company. So I was really flummoxed by this. And look, I understand that, and I've done it in my own career for sure. I'm not immune to this. It is very tempting to sometimes fib to your customers about speed and timelines because you're like they expect it in 7 days. You know it's going to take 10, but you tell them 7 because you want to keep them happy. And you're like, all right, we'll just fight about it afterwards. Like let's kick the conflict can down the curb a bit. It's human nature. It happens in every business all the time, and I've done it, and I'm my family have been entrepreneurs since 1850, so I know how this works. And it used to be fine, right? You told me 7, it took 10 days. I'm not doing cartwheels, but okay. You can't do it anymore though, Phil, because the whole point of this book, The Time to Win, is that we care about and value our time more than ever. And in that culture, the one thing you can't lie to your customer about is speed. You're better off lying about price than you are about speed.
You're better off lying about price
Than you are about speed.
than about speed. Oh my gosh.
You're better off. You're better off saying, "Oh, I told you it was going to be 199. It's actually going to be 229. We had a price increase." It happens all the time. I mean, think about right now. All the time, oh, the price has gone up because wages have gone up, or there's a fuel surcharge, or now we're going to make you tip on everything, or like this idea of or shrinkflation, right? Even in the tequila business that I work in, a lot of bottles are getting smaller, right? Price is the same, bottle smaller. So there's all these either overt or covert price increases. And generally speaking, people are like, I get it. Inflation, things are more expensive, right? People don't push back that hard. But if you tell them now that it's going to be 8 weeks and it's going to be 16, they're ready to burn your place to the ground. So don't lie about speed anymore.
That's too funny. That's too funny. Well, you mentioned tequila, Jay. I want to talk to you a little bit about that and how that relates to speed, because I think, at the bar, right? We go to the bar, and you and I, we've been to the same NSA event for years. We go up, they have one bartender, and it takes us 30 minutes to get a drink. And it used to be, we'd be like, well, okay, I'm just going to stay here and talk to my buddy Jay. And eventually I'm going to die of thirst because we're in the Arizona desert. So how important is it in the retail business, in the service business, in the hospitality business to be fast?
Well, especially in a situation like that, which I experience a fair bit, given how much I travel. And it is always befuddling to me when you're in a situation like that, where speed and money are literally a direct correlation. Like if you had a second bartender, it's going to reduce by half the amount of time it takes to get a drink. Therefore, you're going to double the amount of drinks you sell. It's like so amazing to me how often that gets messed up. Right now, sometimes, and I've certainly been a part of this kind of fandango where the bar doesn't know that 200 people are coming in at the same time, all looking for drinks, and so they have the one poor bartender there who gets hung out to dry. Like, I get that. Still sucks, but I get that. But in a situation like this, like you're referring to, in a conference situation, in a conference hotel, like all you're doing is literally costing your company money by not leaning into responsiveness, right? And there's some ways to fix that. Some of it's staffing, some of it's just being a better bartender, etc. But look, everybody tuning in has heard the phrase "time is money," right? It's been around for, I don't know. I should actually do some research on that and see when that phrase was invented. It's been around a long time. I know that, but it's weird that it's been around so long because it wasn't actually true. It is true now. The book proves it. I've got the research. I've got the receipts, right? Time is literally money. If you are faster than your customers expect, they will give you more money and they will stay with you longer, period.
Wow. So other than not being aware of this, not going to theTimeToWin.com to get a copy of this, other than not buying it on Amazon, why would organizations resist this, Jay?
2 reasons. One, they think they're fast enough. 2, they feel like they don't have the resources in-house to be faster. You kind of nodded to that earlier. To which I say, you may not have all the resources necessary to lean into this, but if those resources then create ROI in the back end, like what are you resisting, right? And then the third is that in many cases, when you're not fast enough, there's no signal for that, right? So I'll give you an example. I think you heard me talk about this one. So I got this house painted a little while ago, and I got 3 bids, as you do. And the first painter got back to me in like 4 hours and said, Jay, I can't paint the house today. And I can't tell you what it's going to cost, but based on what you told me in your voicemail, here's kind of sort of what I think it might cost. And here's when I can come out and give you an estimate and do the job. Second painter returned my call 2 days later. Third painter returned my call 11 days later, at which point I'd already hired the first guy and painted the house. Like it had already been done. The tricky part is painter 2 and painter 3, who I didn't hire, they always think that they lost on price. Like we always believe it's price. We always convince ourselves that, oh, those other guys were too inexpensive. It's almost never price, Phil. It's almost never price. It was actually speed. And the problem is when you lose on speed, it's almost always invisible. There's no report. There's no spreadsheet that you can say, press button, show me how much money we lost because we weren't fast enough. It's just very difficult to isolate it. It happens every second of every day, but it's really difficult to isolate it. And that's why businesses don't take it to be as important as it actually is, because you can't hold it in your hand as much as perhaps we'd like to.
Yeah. Wow. Wow, that's so interesting. Well, we got an answer, Jay, for you here. Time is Money first appeared in George Fisher's book, Advice to a Young Tradesman, in 1748. Thank you, Gene.
That's even longer than I thought. Wow, that's awesome.
That is fantastic.
I appreciate that. I'm going to build that into my next keynote, which is next week. So thank you very much.
Way to go, Gene. All right, so
you're a legend.
Yeah. Woohoo! So with that, Jay, let's talk a little bit more about tequila here, and then we'll get back to pivoting and talking about the book. What is with tequila, Jay Baer? How did this start, Jay? Why are you doing this?
I am now the number 2 most popular tequila educator on the internet. And I get recognized. I know, sorry. There's some other guy. I get recognized in airports every week, and it's always for tequila. It's never for the books or the speaking or the other things I've done or the podcast. Nope, only tequila, which proved something that I suspected, that people care about tequila more than they care about business advice. And that probably makes sense.
Well, Jay, I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, I like you a lot, man, but I want some tequila.
I get it. So I grew up in Arizona, and I've always been interested in Latino culture and agave spirits, etc. And about 25 years ago, I started kind of getting increasingly into it. And over time, just learn more. Visited Mexico a bunch of times and went to distilleries and met people in the industry. And a couple years ago, not quite, 18 months ago, I stopped doing my own podcast, which I'd done for 10 years. And I thought, okay, let me just take the time that I used to spend on the podcast, and I'll just make some videos about tequila, and maybe that'll be fun for me to do. And I did, and it went like crazy. And now we've got 10 or 12 different brand sponsorships and a merchandise line and affiliate programs and all kinds of other stuff. So it's find me on Instagram, Tequila Jay Baer.
That's fantastic. I love that.
It's a real business. Like we're gonna have to like hire staff. It's like it's crazy.
That is awesome. I'm happy for that. So once again, Jay, proves that your time to market is always on point and speedy. So
well, I mean, tequila's having a moment for sure. I mean, tequila consumption in the U.S. was up 40% during the pandemic, which is pretty crazy. I mean, you don't see 40% increase in anything very often. So that's been good news. There are now more than 2,000 tequila brands, 250 or so new ones in 2023 alone. So it's very much a dogfight for market share, for retail shelf placement, bar placement, and most of the newer tequila brands aren't super good at marketing. And so since that's really my background, we try to help some of those partners out with just making a better product. And making a better go of it in terms of selling it. And it's fun. I've got to go down there now about once a quarter to visit brands and go to distilleries and kind of do tequila business, which is not the worst business to do.
There you go. Well, that if you get to Ohio, you let me know. I'll drink
The
some
problem
tequila.
is Ohio being a control state is like one of the worst tequila states.
Well,
period.
let's go to Kentucky then. I'll visit you.
Yes.
You let me know.
Pennsylvania also terrible. Michigan also terrible. But Kentucky, yes, that's a good option.
All right, that sounds good. So, Jay, if I wanted to get started drinking tequila, and then we're going to talk about the book a little bit more. If I want to get started drinking tequila, are there one or two that I should start with if I'm not a tequila drinker today?
Well, it's a tricky question because tequila availability is so all over the place, right? It's, every store, every bar, every city, every restaurant has a different batch. But the best way to go is if you go to jaytequila.com, Jay tequila.com. You can sign up for my list. It'll just bounce right back to you. And it's my list of like 30 recommended brands. And so what happens is people take that list and they keep it on their phone. And that way, if they're in a restaurant, in a bar, in a store, they can just consult the list. If it's on that list, it's going to be great. That's the best way to do it. Amongst the kind of grocery store brands, the ones that you see everywhere, Patron is probably the best of those. Of the big super well-known brands. Sort of the next category of brands that you might find in more and more places, Tequila Ocho is really, really good. OCHO. They're found in more and more places for sure. And also another brand owned by the same family, El Tesoro, is also increasingly available.
Cool. That's great. Patron, Tequila Ocho, and El Tesoro. Now, is Tequila Ocho, is that partner with ESPN, the Ocho? For
no, it's funny. That's hilarious. But no, they are partnered with, I think it's Four Roses Bourbon.
Oh, cool.
One of those bourbon companies, that they've got a partnership with.
Outstanding. Good stuff. Well, Jay's book, Jay, before I ask you the last question, I want to pimp the book a little bit here. You can get Jay's book at theTimeToWin.com.
Yep.
That's not the number 2. That's the word 2, T-O, theTimeToWin.com. All of his research is there too. So lots of great stuff. So Jay, you gave us some good tips on how to get started before, about how to be more responsive than your customers expect us to be, accept that it's here because it's going to make you money. But if you had one last thing, Jay, that you wanted to shout out to all the business owners that are struggling and don't know it because this is a hidden loss, what would that one piece of advice be?
I think the one I would tell you, the one that people really gravitate towards in my program, is to offer a fast pass. So it used to be near Disney, Phil, and Disney has pioneered this idea. I think they call it the lightning lane now. They've changed the name a couple times.
Yeah.
So the principle is you pay more and you don't have to wait to go on the lines, right? You pay more, you wait less. Every business can do that, right? Every business can offer a fast pass, right? So I used to run a consulting business, and I really wish I would have done this back then. People would come in and say, "Hey, can you work on our strategic plan?" I'm like, "No. We got 2 other ones to do first. We can't do yours until March." They'd be like, "Oh, bummer." Or maybe they go somewhere else, or they just be sad or whatever. And now I realize I should have just said, "Yeah, we can do that. We'll just have you skip the line and we'll just charge you a 20% premium to make that happen." And then we just reshuffle the sequence. So you can offer a fast pass in almost every business, and it is pure profit. It's not requiring you to do anything else. All you're doing is changing the number of when you serve each customer. And 25% of your customers, 1 in 4, will pay as much as 50% more to not wait. 1 in 4 will pay as much as 50% more to not wait. So not all your customers are going to like this. Only 1 in 4 will like it. But those who like it will pay handsomely for the privilege to not wait because they're in a hurry or they're disorganized or for whatever reason they need it now. You should give them that opportunity and you should take their money. Like emergency plumbers have been doing this for a century, and now everybody should do it. Offer a fast pass.
Love that. Well, great stuff, Jay, as expected here. Yeah, theTimeToWin.com is the website if you want more about this. And then because Jay is such a bonus kind of giver guy, go to jaytequila.com and get some insight about tequila and get the list. Jay, as always, buddy, it's a great time with you. Thanks, man.
Thanks, my friend.